Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail, the realm where the shadows whisper ancient secrets and nightmares come to life. I am your guide through the darkness, and on this channel, we delve into the spine-chilling world of Wendigo horror stories that will send shivers down your spine. First story. It was not a Wendigo. So today me and my friend, we'll call Haven for the story, went out into the woods as promised. We had not brought a Ouija board, though. Haven knows all about my messed-up relationship with the otherworldly. But what happened today has me wondering if I'll even wake up tomorrow. So the night before we decide to do this, my ma tells me something I didn't know. One day my pa in a drunken fit goes deep into the woods, and to his horror he finds mangled carcasses of coyotes, deer, and even a bear. I knew this wasn't some normal predator, and I just knew something would go wrong if we tried this, but I brushed it off. So me and Haven were walking home from school. I live 30 minutes away from it, and we started talking about what we think will happen. I honestly didn't think a damn thing about it. As we neared our location, the air became thin. The old abandoned cabin that the skeletons were found had a metal roadblock, making it hard to exit or enter, which proved to be a nightmare. Possible trigger suicide mentioned, not graphic, just the word. My friend Haven wasn't getting notifs from her phone anymore, and apparently her gram had called. About a month ago, Haven attempted suicide, but she's still here and doing much better. Her gram from North Dakota called to make sure she was all right, and we were by this cabin. Before she had called, H had asked, "Do you really think it's a Wendigo? Like, why attack this little town?" Like I said, I'm part Native American, and in this culture, we're not supposed to talk about skinwalkers or they gain interest in us. I explained this to her and said the following: "No. I believe it is actually a skinwalker since I talk about them so much it would make sense as to why they'd come for me." She then called her gram back. While on the phone, I pointed out how there was no other sign of life. My house is just down the road from hers, and all you hear is birds, but it was dead silent. And this is where I can't even believe what happened. I have always had quite a bit of underdeveloped psychic ability. Like, I'll see glimpses of the future, and they'll come true unless I change something I'm doing. All of a sudden, just as her gram starts tell her she loves her, it started breaking into this garbled static of screams and howls, and I panicked. I saw a glimpse. There were two skinwalkers behind us quite far away, but I knew if we waited any longer, we'd die. I grabbed her hand and sprinted as fast as possible. I heard something behind us. All the while, the garbled static continued. I'll try to find a clip or something of what it kind of sounded like. It'll be at the bottom of the post. And then her phone died just as we cleared the roadblock and bolted for my grandma's. She wasn't home, just the dog. We locked all the doors and just hid. The dog will not stop whimpering and barking. At this point, we're both in tears. Then we hear someone pull in. And then nothing else really happens. We just go home. I will never forget that sound. Second story. I looked over, and for just a moment, I could see a dark and malevolent shadow leaning down and beside his ear. Just a vague outline of darkness that was quickly gone, like a puff of smoke disappearing in the drafty corner of the cabin. "And what does he say to you, Mr. Drescher?" His eyes were wide and frightened as he looked up at me. "Don't ask me, Mr. Grep. Ask your boy Stevie over there." I looked and saw Steve had a blank look in his eyes. The noises from outside had stopped for the time being, and we were left in silence. "What does he mean, Steve? Do you have any idea what he's talking about?" The 1,000-yard stare didn't go away, but he did shake his head. "No." But I had a feeling he knew more than he was saying. I had already taken out the first aid kit, and now got to work patching Steve's eye with gauze and sterilizing his wounds with alcohol. He didn't even flinch when I poured it onto the gaping cuts in his flesh. I saw there was a large bump and an open wound that looked pretty nasty on the back of his head that probably accounted for his slurred speech. I dumped a generous amount of the rubbing alcohol on that as well. He's gonna need a CAT scan and an MRI when we get home, I'll bet. Jeff had the fire going steadily, and I was afraid to ask him to leave it since it had gotten so cold outside, and he clearly had a skill for maintaining it. but told him to go make up some sandwiches for everyone since he was the only non-injured member of the group not currently tied to a chair. Peter was instructed to keep the fire going in Jeff's absence, which he groaned and complained about despite the lack of work that would entail. After finishing the final bandages on Steve's forehead, I tried to think of how we could rescue my son. Calling the police was out of the question with the storm. The cell phone had no signal. And if I left him alone with that monster and went to get help on foot, he would be dead before anybody could find him. The thing was insatiable in its hunger, at least from all the evidence we had seen. It wasn't trying to get into the cabin, which meant it wasn't all-powerful. It somehow knew it couldn't get past the sturdy doors and windows. Either that or it was just toying with us, waiting for us to come out. Dreasho had said that it fed on our fear, but was that true or just more insane rambling? You keep acting like you know everything about it. So how do we kill it? Can you tell me that at least? I yelled at Mr. Dreasher. Oh, you can't kill him. He won't let you. Men have tried before and none have lived to tell of it. What is he? Do you even know what he is? He's a Wendigo. You should know that by now. A dark spirit. It infects people like a sickness. It takes them over. And it's contagious. That's the worst part of Wendigo psychosis. It doesn't just stop with one person. So is that what's happening to you? It's making you crazy. Oh yes. Quite insane. In fact, I can see all sorts of quite elaborate and colorful hallucinations occurring all around us. But I'm attempting to ignore them in order to convey this highly important information to you while I'm temporarily still lucid enough to do so. So, in other words, please shut the fuck up and listen. Got it? It's going to make us. Ha 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 ha. Oh my good God, you really thought I was going to tell you. Ha 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 ocho ho no. No, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't laugh, but that's too much. You really are stupid though. You know that, right? I started to turn away, and then he practically screamed it. IT makes us want to eat people. Num num num, eat you up yum. Fucking Mr. Dreasher. He managed to distract me for just long enough. The wind began to howl outside again, and I noticed that Steve was gone from his seat. I thought at first he had gone to help Jeff make sandwiches right after I had finished his bandages. The little bugger had slipped away quiet as a mouse. Something about that unsettled me, though. It didn't sit right. Why would he have disappeared like that without saying anything? Thump. That was when I heard the sound like a meat cleaver coming down on a thick primal cut. I got up from my chair on trembling legs and walked towards the noise. It came again from the pantry. Thump-thuck, thump-thuck, thump-thuck. Then another noise. A sound like someone chewing on a very tough steak. Gnawing on it, trying to get through the gristle. The darkness in the little pantry room was difficult to see into. I pulled out my flashlight, and it reflected off one inhuman eye that glared back from the recently rescued little boy's face. Steve's mouth was bright red with blood, and I saw Jeff was on the ground beside him, dead, lying in a pool of his own blood. There were parts of him missing. His right hand was gone, and I saw that Steve was chewing on it, like a drumstick, taking big bites from the palm of the hand like it was fried chicken. Oh fuck. Steve's eyes flashed in the darkness, and I heard him make an animalistic hissing noise as I stepped backwards, unsure what I was going to do next. He held a large cleaver in his hand that he had snatched from the knife block back there, and I realized that I was unarmed and unprepared for this. Hell no. I'm out of here, man. Peter suddenly yelled from behind me. I realized he had snuck up and had witnessed the grisly murder scene unfolding in the storage room. He ran to the front door and unlocked it, then was gone out into the snow, leaving the door hanging open behind him. Peter, come back here. Third story. Found an old journal in Sierra Nevada mountains. I live in LA, and me and some buds were hiking the Sierra Nevadas last weekend. We thought this was some pretty cool shit, and one of them said I should post it here. The journal was in a wooden box in a shitty little shack that looked like it has been abandoned for a long-ass time. August 14th, 1848. Tomorrow we enter the mountains. It is to be the most difficult part of our journey, But because of the new, faster route, we should be safely arriving at our destination on the Pacific weeks before the first snowfall. Today, Jeremiah and I succeeded in killing a rabbit to add to the evening stew. Everyone was most pleased with the extra food in their bellies. I look forward to the day when we can all sit by the seashore, our pockets full of California gold, and feast upon the bounty of delicacies the West has to offer. September 28th, 1848, we have yet to transcend the mountains. The new route is saturated with fallen logs and streams. Our progress has been tedious. It seems as if the second we cross one treacherous stream, another obstacle appears in the road ahead. Even so, I believe sincerely that we will indeed arrive in California soon enough. Just a bit behind schedule. October 4th, 1848, the rear wheels on the Smith family's wagon simultaneously splintered to pieces on the trail today. We shall have to delay ourselves yet another day to repair the damage tomorrow. I fear that we are not moving fast enough, as there was a distinct chill on the air today. October 24th, 1848, snowflakes fell today. With the snow came the realization that we are not going to get out of these mountains before the snow falls. We make a mile a day, and that discounts any unforeseen circumstances, which have become quite common: broken axles, injured horses, and the like. We have enough rations to last a month, at best. God help us. November 18th, 1848, I do believe that it would be easier to travel to the moon in our wagons than to travel on these so-called trails. Even without the snow, they were more like animal paths than wagon roads. It became impossible to move the wagons after the first big storm. We did what we thought was best: disassembled the wagons to build a series of makeshift shelters, 2 for us and 1 for the oxen. We've since been living off of our rations, which have been taken sparingly as to prolong them. Even so, we are undeniably running out. I do not know what we will do when the food is gone. I dread the day I have to find out. December 3rd, 1848, the last of the rations are now gone. The last bit of our food was stewed for tonight's supper. Tomorrow we intend to butcher one of the oxen. We plan to make the beast last as long as we can. December 25th, 1848, we have 2 oxen left. I anticipated the meat to last much longer. The snow will not melt for a good while. The thought of my children going hungry as I stand by helplessly sickens me. Our celebration of Christmas was composed of a mite of caroling and an extra slab of meat. January 13th, 1849, I had to club the dog today. I love the loyal old hound, but I love my children more. I cannot bear watching them starve. So I did what had to be done. Jeremiah, being the oldest, understood that it was something different than the oxen, the last of which was consumed the day before last. When he asked what it was, I told them all that I managed to dispatch a pair of squirrels. I don't think Jeremiah believed me, but he held his tongue. Now what do? Every living creature that accompanied us has been eaten. January 21st, 1849, for the past week, we've been eating thin soups composed of evergreen leaves and the leather of our boots and belts. Now, even this meager source of nourishment has been depleted. We never should have come here. February 6th, 1849, Mary passed on today. She was so frail. We all are, nowadays. I was the one who buried her. I'm the only one with the strength to dig a hole in the snow for her final resting place. I was so tired. I was so hungry. And she is dead. My dear, sweet daughter is dead. The dead do not know nor care what happens to their old body. This is how I rationalized it. I took only a small bit, just enough to sustain me. Even so, I am ashamed of my actions. February 9th, 1849, I feel different now. Yesterday, I gave in to the hunger, the ever-so-present hunger. I returned to the grave of my daughter. My daughter, who is in a warm, happy place, worrying not about the state of her former body. I returned to the grave. I dug up the frozen corpse of my child, and I fed until there was nothing left but bones. And I feel different now. February 17th, 1849, I am so hungry. I am starving. Not for the pine straw water the others eat, but for the others themselves. As I watch my children grow weaker, I rejoice. The sooner they die, the sooner I can eat. February 24th, 1849. The only child left is Jeremiah. The rest have gone on. I consumed them. I simply could not control myself. Even now, the hunger presses me. The urge to feed, right now, on all that I can, is all but irresistible. March 7th, 1849. They're all dead. The ones still alive when the hunger won were far too weak to fight back when I came for them. I feasted for hours. I am still hungry. I need to eat. It needs to eat. And it will eat, forever, because it has won. Fourth story. My best friend the Wendigo. Sometimes things happen to us that we just cannot explain. No matter how many resources are available or what information we can find. There are things that can never be understood, and that is a commanding factor of life. Now, a question. I know some, if not many of you have had friends, even best friends that disappear from your life without a rhyme or reason. That very same thing happened to me with my friend Marcus. We were best friends throughout high school and carried the friendship on well into our 20s, but one day he simply disappeared. I don't mean he was reported missing and the police were involved. I just mean he left without telling me, his best friend. I spoke to his mother and she said he had gone on a trip to northern Alaska. When I asked her why, she said, he never gave me a reason. I could hear the sorrowful tone in her voice. Like myself, she missed him too. But out of nowhere he came back. He told no one he had returned, and one day he showed up on my doorstep as if he had never left. I admit he looked good, better than I remembered. He seemed healthy, if you can understand. Marcus, you're back. I remarked, bewildered. Yeah, man, he said in a smooth demeanor. He had his hands tucked into the pockets of the jean jacket he was wearing. Got back a couple days ago. You look well. Where you been, man? I asked casually. I noticed his face was flushed red, but it was probably just the lighting outside because the sun was setting. Yeah, thanks. I've just been traveling, finding myself. He answered, but he seemed indifferent about conversation. It made me wonder why he came here if he wasn't looking to talk. Well, that's cool. Did you want to come in? I asked while gesturing my hand through the door. He nodded and brushed past me into my home. Thanks, Derek. He said nonchalantly, as if this was a routine occurrence. Something up? I asked as I closed the door behind me. Marcus flipped his wavy blonde hair and sighed. No, not really. I just have a proposition for you. It was strange that this was how he decided to start the first conversation between us in a long time. A proposition? Forgive me for saying this, but we haven't spoken in quite some time, man, and I don't know if I'm really in the position to dive headfirst into something new. No, it's not like that, began Marcus. He didn't appear slighted by my response, which was welcoming to see. I was just wondering if you'd be interested in coming with me on a trip. A vacation of sorts. It wouldn't be long, just a week up north. With who? You? I asked with a hint of scrutiny. Yeah, just me, he said quickly. For some reason, his fingers were twitching like he could barely control himself from having a breakdown of some kind. Why so sudden? And why me? I mean, Marcus, where have you actually been this whole time? I find it strange you would come to me of all people for this hurried request of yours. I need someone to come with me. It's important that you understand, Derek. I'm not the same person I was when I left. I am something much more unique. But I cannot be left to the masses. I must be quelled. He was speaking in completely vague sentences, the context of which I couldn't understand. I have to be honest with you, Marcus. I don't know what the fuck you're saying to me right now. I wasn't going to lie, but I saw a slight shift in his eyes upon hearing my candor. He sat down in my recliner and clasped his hands together. Listen, are you in or not? He wouldn't even look me in the face when he asked. He simply hung his head with his eyes on the floor. Well, I don't know. Where would we be going exactly? A cabin up north. Once we get there, I'll give you a list of instructions that you must adhere to. I promise you will understand. I took a deep breath. Clearly, Marcus was in distress and needed help. I wasn't going to leave him to fend off against whatever demons were riding his shoulders. I figured he had become an addict and wanted someone to look after him while he got himself cleaned up. I suppose. I said quietly. Awesome. Thanks, Derek. He said hastily, you won't have to pay for anything. I've got that all covered. Just be ready tomorrow morning, and we will head up there. Tomorrow? Damn, that's definitely short notice. I said, already thinking about what I would tell my boss. Don't worry about work, man. Just trust me, even if you've never trusted anyone. He remarked as if he read my mind. He then stood up and began walking to the door. I don't know what happened to you, but something's definitely different. I mentioned as I opened the door for him. You don't know the half of it. He said before walking outside. See you in the morning. Bring anything you're comfortable with bringing, but don't overpack. I nodded even though he was facing away from me, and he walked off down the sidewalk. How'd he got here? Obviously, he didn't drive if he was walking. Something seriously weird was going on with him. My boss was fine with me taking some time off. I figured it wouldn't actually last a week anyway, so in my head all would be well. The next morning I was ready to go, and Marcus arrived just after 9 a.m. to pick me up. I brought my things outside. I had only packed some snacks, a flashlight, blankets, a pillow, my medication, and several outfits for the outdoors alive. The cabin has beds and blankets, said Marcus from the driver's seat of the old SUV he arrived in. Yet well, I prefer to feel a sense of comfort that I can only achieve by having things that belong to me. If you say so, he remarked. His lack of engagement was already growing stale. I got in the passenger seat and we sped away without another word shared between us. Every so often, I would glance at Marcus to study him. While he did seem healthy, there was something innately different about him that I couldn't put my finger on. He was jittery, easily startled, and on edge. We drove for a good 6 hours before pulling off at a rest area. Marcus seemed alert, but for some reason he said, "We're going to sleep here for the night." The night? Have you gone blind, dude? It's barely 3 in the afternoon. Yes, I know. I'm hungry and I need to rest, said Marcus quietly. I can drive, man, if that's the issue, I asked reassuringly. He turned to look at me with viciously bloodshot eyes as if he had been staring at the sun the entire drive. No, you don't know the way. You can tell me the way? I have GPS? No, Derek. Just close your eyes or do something for a bit. I'm hungry. The way he said hungry was like a ravenous animal, like his desire to feed was overthrowing his decision-making. Fine, fine. Go get something to eat then, I said, kicking my feet up on the dash and leaning the seat back. Marcus stammered when he responded, no, not yet. When night falls, I will. You're acting really strange, man. Is everything good? Instead of responding, he only nodded slowly. I didn't say anything back, but I did watch him from the corner of my eye for some time. I noticed he was watching every single person who walked into the rest stop, like a starving fiend. I passed the time by reading on my phone, listening to music through my headphones, and after night fell, I closed my eyes. Up until I decided to try and sleep, Marcus hadn't taken his eyes off the entrance of the rest stop. I can't even recall if I saw him blink once. Luckily, I managed to fall asleep relatively quickly. However, I was awoken abruptly when Marcus heaved his body back into the driver's seat as if he were running from something. He was absolutely covered in blood, his mouth and most of his face, his hands, his shirt and pants, everywhere. And Marcus, what the fuck, man? I asked intensely. He swallowed audibly. I feel better now. We can keep going. I could see his teeth stained red from the dim light produced by the rest area. No way, man. You're going to tell me what happened to you. Without looking at me, he said, I had to eat, Derek. We all have to eat. What in the fuck are you talking about, Marcus? What did you eat? A barrel of blood. Not quite. He then started the vehicle and shifted it into reverse. I reached out and shifted it back into park. When I did, he turned towards me and grabbed my wrist. His grip was insurmountably strong. It felt like he could crush my arm if he had the mind to do it. "Derek, let go," was all he said while his entire body was visibly trembling. I didn't know what else to do, so I listened. I carefully brought my hand back to my lap, and he shifted into reverse once more before bringing us back onto the freeway. I couldn't keep my eyes off him, but he wouldn't look at me anymore. Not until we reached the cabin. The overwhelming smell of blood had filled the vehicle, and I had gagged a few times from it. The pungent aroma wafting off Marcus was almost unbearable. I checked my phone. Of course, there was no signal out here, and I caught a glimpse of him watching me from the other side of the SUV. "Calling the police is futile," said Marcus through his blood-stained teeth. "Tell me what you did back there." I shouted at him, unsure of what else to say. "I did what I had to," he said while walking towards the front door of the cabin. "Marcus, please, man. I can help. Just tell me what's going on." He froze as if he really was about to answer me, but instead he reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. Then he unlocked the door and went in without saying another word. I stood outside for a long time. I didn't want to go inside and see him sitting there painted with blood, but something told me that Marcus needed help, so I went in. He was sitting on a dusty couch in fresh clothes. He must have showered too, because his skin was clear of the red tinge that had dominated it before. One thing was different, though. He had lost most of his hair. I don't mean little clumps or bald spots. I mean there were only a few strands of hair remaining. Furthermore, he had patches of raw skin on his face, and I'm sure they were on his body as well. I sat in a chair across from him and observed his seemingly deteriorating form. His eyes were fixed on the rickety floorboards beneath us, and he had his palms placed flat on his thighs. After 5 solid minutes without so much as a twitch, he finally raised his head. His eyes met mine, but his were almost black. There were dark blue veins forming a webbed pattern from the corners of his eye sockets, and his lips were dry and cracked. When he spoke, it was with a breathy and raspy tone. "I'm going to tell you a story, Derek. When I am finished, you will do something for me. You cannot say no. You must do it. I can't make promi dash. You must." Marcus suddenly shouted. He had raised himself up further, but something wasn't right. His spine was longer somehow, like it had been stretched, making him appear much taller even when sitting down. Okay, I said timidly. His shouting struck a drastically fearful chord within me. "Good," he mumbled under his breath. Then he began his story. "As you know, I went to Alaska. It wasn't for nothing. I had actually met a girl up there on an app." He grinned slightly, but it quickly faded. When I say this, I mean it. She was perfect. Well, for me at least. He stopped for a moment, and I noticed he was eyeing my hands, but then he continued. "Anyway, her name was Claire, and we really hit it off. It was one of those love at first sight moments. Seriously, Derek, she was everything I could have ever wanted or needed in a woman." I uttered a sound of acknowledgement, so he knew I was listening as he went on. "She was a simple person, and she lived in an old town. I can't even remember the name of it now, but we made a life for ourselves there. However, she started acting strange. She would ask to have guests over constantly as if I wasn't enough. I don't say that in a jealous way. I mean, she literally wanted someone else over every single day, and she reeked of desperation. It was like her life depended on it." While he spoke, one of his fingernails fell off and landed with a quiet ticking sound on the floor. Marcus didn't seem to mind because he kept talking. Eventually, I caved. I invited one of her friends over, a local guy who worked at the town's bakery. About an hour before he arrived, Claire called me into the bedroom. She had this weird, almost evil tone in her voice, but I disregarded it. I thought that she may have been looking to get intimate before this friend of hers arrived, but that wasn't the case at all. "Are you sick, Marcus?" I asked as I watched 2 more fingernails slide off his fingers onto the floor. He didn't answer me, not directly anyway. He looked up at me, and his left eye clouded over with a milky white color. Was he dying right before me? Marcus picked at one of the scaly gray patches of skin on his hand. It only made his other nails fall off, but he didn't seem to mind or notice because he went on. As I entered our bedroom, the door closed behind me. Claire was standing there with a rope and a gag. That only solidified my assumption about her need for intimacy, so I let her tie me up. But instead of getting frisky, she gagged me and left the room. I tried to get her attention, but obviously she couldn't hear me. "How long were you like that?" I asked gently. I wanted him to feel like I had genuine interest. "Longer than I expected." I heard her friend come inside, and I tried to yell to get his attention, but it was no use. That's when the screams started. There were horrendous noises of agony coming from the other room, and they weren't from Claire. He sighed again faintly. During the conversation, his entire body had begun turning a pale gray color, and the last bits of hair he had left fell to the floor. There was this squelching sound and another sound I can only liken to a saw cutting meat. I hated every moment being tied to that bed in our barely lit room. "Where are you going with all of this, Marcus? Are you saying Claire killed her friend?" "She didn't just kill him, Derek. She ate him." "What?" I exclaimed vehemently as my stomach turned. "Yeah, she ate him, and when she was full, she brought the scraps of what was left into the bedroom. She removed the gag and told me if I didn't eat, she would consume my flesh as well." Did you do it?" I asked with curiosity. He looked down and then up before slowly nodding. "I did. Marcus. Man, I don't know what to say. Just keep listening," he said solemnly. I had to hold my mouth open while she let the blood of her friend drip inside. She told me that if I did, then I'd never be sick again. I'd never worry about anything but eating. It made me remember all the times she had gone out for the night only to come back looking more youthful than before. I shifted in the chair and Marcus stared at my hands again for far too long. I was growing uncomfortable by his lustful gaze. The next time he spoke, his voice had diminished into something gravelly and hoarse. I did not fight her. I did what she asked. I hoped that she had just lost her mind, and when she was satisfied, I'd make my escape. But I was wrong. The flesh, that is, the consumption of it made me a new being. It gave me strength, vitality, and an iron constitution. I felt the best I had ever felt in years, but then came the hunger. Hunger? I questioned calmly, although I was reminded of when he mentioned how hungry he was at the rest area. Yes, Derek. The hunger for human flesh was insatiable. It didn't matter how much I ate. My body would feel like it had been further deprived of sustenance. I craved warm, running blood, almost like a vampire, and Claire did too. Before we knew it, we had slaughtered the entire town and nobody saw it coming. But after that, Claire, she turned into something feral, something less human and more animalistic. Like you are now? I asked with a hint of concern. Yes, she became this creature. It was grotesque and malformed. She wasn't my Claire anymore. So, I did what any loving partner would do. I put her out of her misery. You killed her. I ended her suffering. I see. That's when I came back down here. I couldn't live up there alone, but I also realized I couldn't be left alive at all. Derek, I desperately want to be with Claire again, whether there's still a place for my soul in heaven or if I'll be sentenced to an eternal hell for the things I've done. As long as Claire's there, I'll be happy. What are you saying exactly, Marcus? I want you to kill me. You, what? I admit, I chuckled a little because the notion was ridiculous. I want you to take the shotgun out of the gun safe and blow my fucking head off so I can't devour another innocent person. Marcus was being serious. I could tell by his tone, and the longer this conversation went on, the more his body changed. I finally managed to ask the question I desperately wanted to know the answer to. Did you eat someone at the rest area? I ate an entire family, he said without remorse. I didn't know what to say. What could you say? All I could do was gasp while remaining at a loss for words. I called the police from the pay phone afterwards. so they should be there now. He began harshly. I chose that particular rest area because the cameras don't work. I had staked it out before even coming to you. It was all planned. But I did it for you. For me. You ate an entire family for me. No, I mean, I made it so you couldn't be connected to what happened. The police are none the wiser, and in reality, you've done nothing wrong. This is fucked up, Marcus. I know. I'm sorry, Derek. I need you to honor my request now, though, before it's too late. What happens if I don't? I asked out of curiosity. Marcus stood up hulkingly tall and groaned a bellowing, low, rumbling roar. You cannot deny my desire for death. In my pain, like I ended the pain for Claire. His breathing was rapid and fierce, but he managed to calm himself down. I apologize for scaring you, he said in his gruff voice. Marcus, you were my best friend once. I can't kill you. You have to. This is why I came to you, because you still are my best friend, and I didn't want to ask a random stranger. They wouldn't understand, but you can understand. His face grew long, and it was accompanied by many painful grunts by Marcus. I need you to do this for me. I do not want to hurt anyone else. Even now the hunger calls to me. It is taking every ounce of strength I have left to resist lashing out at you and devouring every tasty morsel of flesh covering your ripe and ravishingly delicious body. He shook his head like a madman before his eyes met mine once again. Please, Derek. I am begging you. I don't know what changed in me, but hearing my once best friend pleading for his death no longer perturbed my emotions. I stared at his rapidly transforming body for an indeterminate amount of time before getting up and walking to the gun safe. It was already unlocked. He must have done that while I waited outside. I reached in and grabbed the only gun in the case, the shotgun Marcus had mentioned. I assumed it was already loaded. If Marcus had planned this much, then surely he planned that too. I walked back to the chair and sat down, and a gnarled, black-toothed grin spread on Marcus's veiny, gray face. Thank you, Derek. I can't live with myself any longer, and this is the best option. Do not take pity on me. Do not feel guilty or ashamed. Take pride in the fact that you have expelled a ruthless creature from this world. I pumped the shotgun and aimed it at his head. My heart was pounding and my hands were sweating. Oh, one more thing, he remarked. In the glove box of the SUV are my life savings. Take it all and do with it what you will. I ask that you never tell my mother about this, or anyone else. It will be our secret. He then took one last deep breath. Okay, I'm ready. Do it. Just as I was pulling the trigger, Marcus's body twisted and contorted into a far more disturbing visage, and as the shot rang throughout the cabin, his blood and viscera splattered against the couch, the floors, the walls, and even the ceiling. His painful shrieking stopped, and his body ceased all movements. It was over. I sat there with the shotgun in my lap, still aimed at Marcus's corpse for most of the day. I couldn't bring myself to get up, or do anything else but stare at my headless former best friend. Eventually, I found the will to stand. After I was on my wobbly 2 feet, I took a sheet from one of the bedrooms and draped it over Marcus. I searched the entire grounds of the cabin for a shovel because I wanted to bury him, but I couldn't find one. It was cold outside anyway, and I'm sure he wouldn't want me to die from digging his grave. I did, however, find some matches. It was the middle of winter, so I thought it would be better to just burn the cabin down. I didn't want Marcus's body to rot there on the cold couch, and as I dropped a lit match on it, the fabric immediately engulfed into a mighty blaze. I walked out of the cabin and got into the driver's seat of the SUV, and that's when I remembered Marcus had the keys. I couldn't help but laugh about the irony of it all. Marcus had left 10 grand in the glove box for me. I ended up having to hike down the driveway and up the road until someone stopped to pick me up. They drove me to the nearest town, Grand Marais, I think it was called. It was a small town, but the people were friendly. I rented a room at their local inn and have been here for 3 days just thinking about Marcus and what he went through. I thought about if I was responsible for the family he murdered and ate, but I had no idea what was going on at the time. I was only along for the ride until I had to play my part, my role in ending Marcus's painful life. If your best friend, or even friend returns to you after having been gone and without contact for years, be careful if they ask for you to take a trip with them. And always remember, the mysteries of the world can outweigh grounded reality. Nothing is as it seems, even Marcus. Be safe, everyone. I hope none of you look down on me. Fifth story. Something whispers my name in the woods. It used to happen now and again. I first remember hearing it when I was just a boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old. I'd been on a stroll through the woods with my mom and her boyfriend, cutting through the park to get to an ice cream shop on the other side of town. "Freddie," the voice said, quietly like a whisper. At the time, I thought it was just my mom's boyfriend, now ex, playing a prank on me. "What?" I asked him. He shrugged. Didn't say anything. The second time it happened, I was 10 years old. My school wasn't far from the forest, and occasionally we'd do our physical education classes out there. This particular time, we were playing capture the flag. I was the flag keeper and exhausted from running, so I found a small spot away from the action to catch my breath. The flag was stuck into my belt on my waist, so I couldn't just grab a breath anywhere. It was easy to steal if somebody was quick or quiet enough. It just so happened one kid, Ryan, thought he was that quiet. Honestly, I wouldn't have heard him either. He was nearly on top of me. "Freddie." I jumped at the sound of my name and Ryan lunged for my flag. Before he could reach me, though, I bolted. At the time, I thought that maybe Ryan called my name to rub in his impending victory. Like a "Aha, Freddie. Got ya," sort of thing. As time wore on, I learned that wasn't the case. The voice called out to me more frequently. When I was in high school, I got a job at a movie theater on the other end of town. The quickest route to get there was, you guessed it, to cut through the forest path. I walked it alone, and often. The more I did, the more the voice would whisper my name. Soon, it was whispering my name at least once every time I walked through the woods. "Freddie," it would say, and I'd stop and look around. When I wouldn't see anybody, I'd turn and continue on my way. This might sound a little silly, but I sort of got used to it. I guess maybe I just didn't want to think I was losing my mind, so I never told anybody about it. Being the kid that heard voices wasn't exactly a badge of honor in high school. Plus, I like to think that maybe I just had some kind of special connection with the woods. Like some spiritual hippie thing. I was 17 years old when the voice terrified me. I'd been leaving a late shift at the theater, one much later than I'd ever done before, and had an exam I still needed to study for the next morning. As much as I didn't want to cut through the woods after dark, I didn't have the money for a cab, and the buses had stopped running. So I went through the forest. I'd walked the path 1,000 times before. Why should tonight be any different? It was quiet at first. Only the wind and the swaying trees greeted my ears. Now and again I would hear something moving in the brush, but it was always easy enough to dismiss as a squirrel or raccoon. After all, I was in their territory. They were probably surprised by me. My heart jumped at the sound of my name. "Freddie," the voice said. "Jesus." I snapped, not expecting it in the dark. I took a deep breath and told myself to relax. "It's just you," I mumbled to myself with a chuckle. I walked for a few more minutes when I picked up on the faint sound of footsteps behind me. Was somebody else taking the shortcut? I turned around, peering into the inky dark of the forest trail. While the moonlight was enough to make out the path directly ahead, it was tough to see much further than 10 or 15 feet. I pulled out my phone and turned on the light, casting it over the trail. Nothing. Just wood chips and a stray candy wrapper. I pocketed my phone, pulled my jacket tighter around me, and continued on. This time I picked up my pace, moving at a fast walk. "Freddie," the voice said again, this time less airy and more forceful. I ignored it, continuing on my way. I just wanted to get the hell out of those woods. It's hard to explain, but I'm sure you felt the same impulse now and again. The sensation that you aren't safe. I felt it in my gut. My body was telling me to leave as quickly as possible. The voice repeated my name, its tone shifting lower, then higher. It sounded unhinged, like an out-of-tune instrument. I'd never heard it repeat my name so often in such a short span of time. Freddy, it sang. Freddy, Freddy, Freddy. I broke into a run. Freddy, it screamed, and footsteps thundered behind me. My mind went blank, my body acting on its own. I ran as hard and as fast I could. The voice screamed my name over and over again, its footsteps closing in on me. I shouted for help, my voice cracking. Freddy, it shrieked from right behind me. I pulled my phone out and frantically dialed 911. I wasn't sure any longer that I could outrun this thing, whatever it was. I needed help. Desperately. The phone beeped and I heard somebody answer on the other end. 911. What is your emergency? Something grabbed my shoulder. I screamed and whipped my hand around, connecting with nothing but air but managing to lose my phone in the process. Leave me alone, I screamed, throwing everything I had into my sprint. My lungs felt like they were on fire, but I knew the alternative of stopping would be far worse. I heaved breath after painful breath. Tears streamed down my face and my legs burned with exhaustion. I was going to die. I knew it. Then I burst out of the woods. I didn't stop to catch my breath. I didn't stop to look behind me. I kept running until I reached the nearest neighborhood a couple blocks away. That night, I took the long way home, sticking to the best lit streets and only those lined with homes. The voice, whatever it was, didn't follow me beyond the tree line. I'm home now, breathless and still trying to calm down. My mom's not here. She's still at her late shift at the hospital, but I'll tell her everything when she gets back. In the meantime, I contacted the police and they're searching the forest. I don't know what it was that was whispering my name for all these years, but I know one thing. I'm never going back into those woods again. Shit. 1 second. I'm pretty sure I just heard the back door open. All right. Looks like I'll have to leave this here for now. I just heard my mom call my name from downstairs. She must be home early. 6th story. There were 2 Wendigo outside my dad's house last night. So, last night my friends and I were driving around aimlessly and ended up on the side of town near my deceased father's house. I go there from time to sit on the steps, say hi, and then I miss him. And since every year for Valentine's Day since I was a kid my dad was my Valentine, I really wanted to stop by the house and give it a hug, but I don't think I'm going back. At around 11 p.m., we stop at the top of the road and I run down the exponential function of a driveway and run up to the garage and hug the house before quickly running up the stairs to the front porch. I rest my head on the front door, telling the house and my dad that I miss being there, and that I missed him. I feel a hand on my shoulder, and I feel my entire body start shaking like I'm sobbing when only a few tears run down my face. Just as this overwhelming feeling starts to come over me, and I feel lightheaded, my friend, Duke, calls me. Alex, get back to the car. Right now. I'll explain why when you get here. Without hesitation, I sprint up the icy driveway without stopping. Thank God without slipping and falling. When I get to the car we take off doing 50, down the road, I'm still crying and can barely breathe and my best friend Riley kept asking me if I'm okay and if I need anything. When I'm able to pull myself together, I ask what made them call me back to the car. Duke doesn't say anything for a few minutes and keeps driving while I keep pestering him about what he saw that made him call me. When we get to a stop sign, he grips the wheel tighter and says he saw a head poking out behind my dad's house, a little bit taller than the garage doors. After a minute of silence, I asked him what it looked like. A big-ass Wendigo. Duke said it popped its head out around the side of the house 2 times, and by the time I was sprinting down the stairs, Riley saw another head come out behind the neighbor's house. Initially, she had thought was a dog head, but soon realized the head was too massive to be a dog's. We take off down the road and all go and crash at my house after getting some McDonald's, with Duke checking the windows until we had fallen asleep. I think he may have spotted another one outside my house. My dog was flipping out all night and trying to get to all the doors in my house at once, and I didn't fall asleep until the sun came up. I don't know what happened. I don't know why my whole body was shaking and why I felt I was going to pass out, but I think my dad protected me, and I know I'm not going back to that house. Seventh story. The Bell in the Woods. Do not let the ancient bell buried deep within the woods frighten you. Save your fear for the creature that answers its call. My grandfather was a cruel man in every sense of the word. The only love he displayed was an unwavering infatuation with bourbon and abusive discipline. Being my only living relative, my childhood was bound to him and his farm by the constricting shackles of the law. His cruelty and frugal practices drove farmhands and hired help away as quickly as he could employ them. My place, however, was in the kitchen. Cooking and cleaning are the only skills a little girl needs to know. These were the words grandfather tattooed to my psyche. As I grew older, he began to stare at me in a way that no family member ever should. Glassy, bloodshot eyes peered through the keyhole whenever I bathed or dressed. I could only turn away and quietly pray to myself for him to stop. On the night he climbed into my bed, I ran, disappearing into the darkness of the woods. 3 days were all that I could bear. The pains of hunger eventually coerced my aching feet to shuffle back towards the farmhouse. As the dim light of dawn illuminated my defeated journey home, a dark object stuck out between the tall oak trees. I crept closer, bare feet crunching dry the leaves below. There it was, covered in decades of dirt, moss, and foliage, an ancient, cast-iron bell. It was taller than I was, etched with unfamiliar symbols and words I had never seen before. Without hesitation, as if against my own will, I grabbed the bell's rusty wheel and pulled. I felt an obligation to hear it ring out, freeing the instrument from the stillness of time. The loud tones shook the ground below my feet. The birds ceased their morning chorus, and the wind haunted as the earth froze. When the tolling quieted, reality rushed in, and I continued my retreat back to the farm. The beating I received from grandfather after crawling through the front door was unforgettable. Dark bruises and scars painted my pale skin like ink on canvas. The following morning was a mental and physical struggle just to get up. My body was tender, and the aches served as both a harsh reminder of the past and a morbid glimpse into the future. I made grandfather his breakfast of bacon and eggs, doing my best to avoid eye contact as he was nursing his third drink of the morning. When I made my way outside to begin my daily labors, two peculiarities took me by surprise. The first, and less strange, being that all of my chores were already finished. The second oddity was the gaunt man in a dusty suit standing completely still in the cornfield. I called for grandfather, and he stumbled from his recliner, drunk and annoyed. I pointed to the man in the field. Without saying a word, he made his way towards the man, and I followed behind, keeping my distance. Grandfather stopped a few feet from him. He was tall, taller than any man I had ever seen before. His long, bony limbs reminded me of crooked tree branches. His clothes were unusual, a charcoal-colored suit and matching hat. He reminded me of the men in the black and white films I fell asleep to at night. Grandfather called out to him and asked his business, but the man only smiled. His teeth were yellow and jagged. His eyes were beady and black. I never saw him blink despite the hot, summer sun beaming down on his face. Grandfather inquired once more, and he was met with the same smiling silence yet again. Infuriated, grandfather threatened to shoot him if he did not leave his land. Hearing this, I spoke up and informed grandfather of the stranger's generous labor. Grandfather gave the man a confused look, which was quickly replaced once again with annoyance. I guess you were expecting payment for your work then? Is this your idea of an application? Grandfather asked. The man shook his head no, the permanent smile still plastered to his wrinkled face. Grandfather continued, Well then what do you want, huh? The man slowly rubbed his flat belly in a circular motion. Grandfather beamed. Work for food? Now that's a deal I'll take any day. Come on back to my house and the girl will whip you up something to eat. They strolled towards the house and grandfather commended him. As the man turned, I noticed a deep, grotesque scar on his neck, oozing green liquid. The lattice pattern made it look as though he had once been cut in two and then sewn back together. I shivered in fear. I prepared a lunch of sandwiches and potatoes for grandfather and the mysterious guest. When I set the plates down, the man tore into the food like a starving animal. Within only a few seconds, he handed me the spotless plate. Amazed, I took it back and prepared another helping for him. Again, he ate it with ferocity. I looked to grandfather and asked him what I was to do. He responded with the back of his hand and barked for me to make him more. And so I did. 8 servings later, the bizarre, lanky man was finally satiated. After lunch, the man quietly rose from the table, walked outside, and disappeared into the woods. I rummaged through the kitchen for any leftover scraps. The next morning, the man completed the chores before I awoke, and again I made him a meal of tremendous proportions. This routine continued for months, cooking and cleaning for grandfather and the gluttonous stranger. And still, he never spoke. As time went on, our food diminished and my own hunger grew, both for food and freedom from the labor. On a cold, winter afternoon, our food finally ran out. The man had completed the daily chores and sat at the table ready to be served. I begged grandfather for grocery money and promised to be back quickly. Infuriated, he blamed me for the missing food and struck me over and over again until I was too dizzy to see straight. I stumbled out of the kitchen and began to lose consciousness. Just before I did, I saw the tall man rise from the table in anger as grandfather yelled to him, "I said I ain't got no more food for you." I awoke a few hours later to the smell of smoke, groggy and disoriented. I searched the house high and low, but grandafter and the man were missing. I stepped outside into the crisp air. The smoky smell was stronger. I followed it like a hound until it led me to a clearing in the woods. There I discovered the source. The tall man looked up, smiling at me with his sharp teeth and inkwell eyes. He stood near a fire and rotated a spit, roasting a corpse in the flames. I sat in silence and watched the tall man eat every last morsel of meat from grandfather's charred bones, just before slithering back into the ground, waiting for the dinner bell to ring once again. And I walked out of the woods, smiling, free for the first time in my life. Thanks a lot for watching the video till the end. Subscribe to our channel Horror in Detail. Drop your opinions/suggestions in the comments section, and like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm.